Hi and welcome to the square balloon tutorial set. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to edit using the cymk values to get the skin tones correct. There are certain values that are correct for different skins, and I'm just going to show you this one for a Caucasian baby, and I'm also going to just clear up the wrinkly background here. I should have stretched my blanket out when I was taking the picture, but anyway, this is what I have, so I'm going to work with this here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to paint over the background. I'm going to make a new layer, and using my paintbrush tool, and I'm going to hold down Alt to get the dropper, and then I'm going to use that colour to paint. Just going to keep using the dropper to get the colour that's there. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Maybe make it a little bit lighter up in this corner. All the way in. Lower the opacity and bring it all the way into here. Okay, I know I'm going over the baby, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a mask on that layer afterwards. Okay, so once I'm happy with that, I'm going to use the quick selection tool now. I'm going to use this. I know it's in CS3 and above, but you can use the magic wand tool as well, but the quick selection tool just does a better job. Well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to click on my background layer and I'm going to select the baby. Oh, select a little bit too much there, so I'm going to get the minus tool and minus where it's taken too much. So with this quick selection tool, there's a little bit of toing and froing in it, but that's alright. Okay, so once I'm happy that I've selected that, I'm going to go to refine the edge, and here's my settings that I have here, and I'll press OK. And in here, when I click on the mask, it'll automatically select that. Well, I'm going to go Control I and invert it, so you can see that it's just only selected the baby, and just a little bit. It's a little bit messy, but that's okay because I'm going to adjust that in a minute. So I'm going to get my black at 100% on my paintbrush, and I'm just going to go over the baby just to soften those edges a little bit. Then I'm going to lower the opacity of my brush, soften them a bit more. Now, because I just painted that background, it's very smooth compared to, there is some texture on this, and I'm going to do something with that now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that colour up here, not on the mask because I was just painting on that. I'm going to click on the colour, and I'm going to go to Filter, Texture, Texturizer. And I'm using, in the texturizer here, I'm using Sandstone at B high scale, and the kind of relief of about 4. It's just to give it just a little bit of texture on that blanket. It's not absolutely necessary. It doesn't always work perfectly, but sometimes just to stop it looking just a little bit painted, you can put that texture on. And if you want, you can then edit, transform, warp, and just warp it there. Now it's obviously messing around with our mask here, so when I apply that transformation, I'm just going to go in to my mask and fix that up. Make sure that that's not affecting what we don't want it to affect. Put back up to 100 just for on the baby. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the skin. I'm going to Make that a little bit softer there. Okay, so I'm going to flatten that down, and I'm just going to cheat a little bit here, and I'm going to use portraiture to smooth some of the skin out. And what I like to do with portraiture is erase it from the hair, because the hair looks a bit funny when it's got portraiture on it. And I'm also going to use curves to brighten the whole thing up. Okay, so now that we've got the baby there, now I can see from that there's too much magenta in the baby, but I'm just going to check on that before I start using the CMYK values to adjust the skin color. So I'm going to get my dropper, and I'm going to make sure that the sample is 5 by 5 average, because if it's on point sample, it only just takes the reading from just that one pixel that it's clicking on. So we're going to go 5 by 5 average, and I'm going to click somewhere where it's not too bright and not too dark, somewhere that has a little bit of skin color information in it. And the forehead, or the forehead is quite a good place, or maybe the shoulder, but I'm going to go for the forehead. And I'm going to hold down shift while I do it, and that's going to give me a little sample there. So if I put my if you click on this, now at the moment mine says CMYK, yours might say RGB, so just click on that and just make sure it's on CMYK color. When I hover over there, I'm going to bring this up a little bit so you can see both of them together. When I hover over there, you can see that my yellow value is 28%, my magenta is 36%, and my cyan is 17%. Now I want my yellow to be have the highest percentage, magenta just to be a little bit below that, and the cyan to be about half of the yellow. So I can see that my magenta is very high there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my layers, and I'm going to make a color balance adjustment layer. So you can see there's my color balance adjustment layer. Click on here, and here's where I can change my values. So I don't want to add any green into the skin color, so rather than lower the magenta and pull it into the greens, I'm going to raise my yellow to make it the same as to make it higher than the magenta. So now I'll check that. I'll just check it to see how that is now, and it is 31, so it still needs to be a little bit higher. Okay, so now it's 32, my magenta is 33, and my cyan is 16. So it's still a little bit more than half, is it? It's about half, but I'm just going to add a tiny bit more red, take a little bit out of the cyan. Let's have a look now. Make it a little bit less cyan. A little bit. Okay. Oh, now I can see my yellow is still a little bit lower than my magenta. Okay, so each one affects the other, so we just have to keep checking that. Okay, so now I can see that my values are about right now, but it's affecting too much of the picture. So I'm going to go into color balance. I'm going to go Control I on the mask there, and I'm just going to paint that in now on the mask with white, because at 100%, because I only want it on the baby. Okay, so now I'm painting it in. Now even though my values are correct, it's a little bit oversaturated. So I'm going to lower that down a little bit. And okay, So you can see from the before, which is kind of magenta and a little bit cool, and now we have a nice skin color. You can still go in after that and you know, I like to run the red skin removal on babies because they always have a little bit too much red in their shadows. Well, they often do, around their ears and often on their nostrils, on their feet, depending on what pose they're in. So you can go back in there and fix those little spots there. And also in this room that I was shooting in, I was shooting with a strobe, and on the right hand side there was a yellow wall, and that's made a sort of a yellow cast down the back, his back there. So I'm going to get my paintbrush and go into the quick mask tool, and I'm going to just paint on all the bits that I think that are a little bit too yellow. When I click on the quick mask again, it selects those areas, and again in my color balance, I'm just going to bring some of that yellow down, because that gets rid of that color cast. So I'll just show you a before and after now. So there we have the before and the after.